Thank you.
So good evening, folks. It's wonderful that we have a very large group of folks tonight, and we're really grateful that you would take the time to spend here on a topic that's really essential to all of us. It's our spiritual journey, and that's exactly what this book reflects, and that's what Maria Shriver is doing. I get up at 4:30 every Sunday morning and get that blog that she sends out, and that's my first read every Sunday morning, so it kind of frames my day. So if I'm in a good mood on Sunday, thank Maria Shriver. We began our journey together many, many years ago when she came for the baptism of her children here to St. Monica's, and so I've been privileged to know the family for all those many years. And one of the things that we did, which came a lot later, was confirmation of her 4 children. We, Sister Edith and I, actually had classes for their family and other families, and spent a lot of time really talking about the things that Maria's talking about and all the things that we all are concerned about in relationship to our kids to today. And so, Maria, we're grateful that you're here in your home of St. Monica, and we are grateful that you'll take our questions now.
Well, I just thank you, Monsignor, and before I get grilled by Monsignor and Sister Edith, I feel bad I have my back over here. I just wanted to thank all of you for coming this evening, braving traffic to be here and putting other things in one's life aside. And I want to thank Monsignor, who has been my Monsignor, really since I moved here many, many years ago. And I've been coming to St. Monica's for almost 30 years. 30 years. Wow, that's a long time. And my faith life has really been kept intact in large part because of Monsignor. And I'm really honored that you're my Monsignor. I love being in this community. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel at home. And I have been supported by this community and this man, so it's really a joy for me to be here. And Sister Edith, as Monsignor said, has been a great source of support and education. I was educated by the nuns. Went to the Convent of the Sacred Heart outside of Washington, D.C. I have no bad nun stories. None. Absolutely none. Yeah, right? I think I'm maybe the only person on the planet with no bad nun story. I actually have a really funny nun story. I told it down because I was educated by the nuns, and they wore habits when... yeah, right, and I could just see I didn't know if they had hair under there or like what, and I was fascinated by their outfits and everything. And I remember distinctly being a young girl and asking the Reverend Mother and the mother, like, how'd you become a nun? How'd you decide? And they were like, well, at one point I was just a young girl just like you, going about my business, and one day at home, God came and appeared to me and told me, you're going to be a nun, and that was that. And I was like, wow. And then I'd go home, I'd shut the door, I'd go, don't you come in here, don't you come in here. I was like, please don't come in here, the door's locked. I didn't have a lock, because I was like not cut out to be a nun. Yeah, so I was cut out to laugh with the nuns and do things with the nuns. And I actually quote Sister Joan Chittister, and who's a great nun, Catholic nun, in the book. So I have had a wonderful relationship with the nuns, and The Sound of Music was my favorite. That's true. And I got the roles mixed up in that, so I was like, oh, there's an Austrian, I'll marry him. And I was like, yeah. I was like, woo! So everything is because of The Sound of Music. I was like, I'm the nun, I'll go out, I'll be that, end up with someone blowing whistles at me. So no, I'm only kidding. Anyway, I haven't eaten. They tried to give me wine out there, but I didn't take it. Anyway, now I'm happy to be here and talk about this serious book. about a meaningful life, Monsignor. So thank
So the first question, Maria, tonight is, the book has as its purpose urging us to live a meaningful life, to live a purposeful life. And so I'd just like you to give sort of a general first frame thought of how that happened, that you came to that thinking, and how the book was formed.
Well, the book came, as you said, it comes out of my Sunday paper that I send out every Sunday, where I write, I've been thinking, and then other people also share their views in it. And many people asked me to put all of those columns into one book, and I thought, well, I don't know if anybody's interested in what I'm thinking and putting it into a book. And so I really responded to people asking me to put it in there. And I was raised with the expectation, not that I would live a meaningful life, but I'd live a life of purpose. And I better damn well live a life of purpose. There was not even a question that I would, my parents expected my brothers and I to do something in the world. They expected big things. And they were the kind of people that you didn't go up against. And you didn't say, no, I don't want to do that, I want to chill. No, that wasn't, that wasn't like an option. So I think I always expected to live a life that fulfilled their expectations of me. It was only later that I came to kind of think I want to live a meaningful life, and what did that mean to me. And so I say in the beginning of the book that a meaningful life is different for everybody, right? But I think we're all here to live lives of meaning. I think we're all here for a distinct purpose, each individual. I think we're all here for a reason that's our own. And so for me, a meaningful life, I kind of paired it out, and I thought it's a life of faith, because that has sustained me. It gives me community, and it makes me feel that I'm here for a bigger reason. It's a life of family, and the evolving nature of family, and keeping that growing and keeping it open. For me, it's been a life of purpose, finding a mission that is bigger than myself, finding work that is meaningful. And I kind of look at those things, and also my own health. That's something, putting myself in the circle was something, I wasn't raised with, that I came to later in life. That a meaningful life is really mine to create, not my parents or somebody else's, but my own. And defining what made me feel like I was in the right space at the right time was up to me. And so kind of that's how I define a meaningful life, but other people define it differently. But I think it's a good thing to think about, is what brings you meaning? What makes you feel like you're in the right place? What makes you feel like this is, work that I think is important and that moves the needle, and this is why I'm here.
Maria, thank you. Several times in your book, you talk about letting go and dealing with the grief that follows that.
Right.
Letting go of your children, letting go of your parents. I'm just wondering, how did all of these letting goes, how did they shape you into the person you are today?
Well, they suck. I just want to say, I write it's like, oh, let go. But I find letting go painful. Excuse me, language sucks. It's just, I think all of us struggle with letting go. I mean, I was one of those people, people are like, oh my God, you have an empty house now, that's so great. I'm like, no, it's not. I don't think it's so great at all. And they're like, oh yeah, but you get to do what you want to do. I was like, I was doing what I wanted to do. That was good. So I think, I think letting go is something you learn kind of, you have to let go of your children, and that's a good sign. You devote your life to them, and then they're like, bye-bye. And, that's cool. You're supposed to be happy. I don't get it, but that's okay. And I think, but you have to let go of relationships and expectations and dreams. And so I think kind of finding, once again, being able to come back to yourself, what's important. I can't control a person. I don't own a person. I don't own a relationship. They're here to teach me a lesson. They're all here to pass through. So I think, kind of looking at letting go, getting good at it, has made me a stronger person. It's made me a more evolved person. And it's made me a much less controlling person, because I realize I can't control anything. And so therefore, if my kids come home, great. If they don't, okay. If, this person doesn't want to be my friend anymore, okay. Maybe I have to say, you're not my friend anymore. Maybe this job isn't good for me anymore. Maybe this relationship isn't good for me. I think, kind of feeling your way along, you have to be willing to let go to move forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
So that's wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to say I saw my daughter walk in. She's standing in the back of the room. She's horrified now that I'm introducing her. But so I let go. I told her she didn't, no pressure. She didn't have to come tonight. But thank you, Christina, for coming.
And Christina, there is some food over in the corner.
Yeah, there is.
outside if you want some.
I told her there was no
You can
food
take a
here.
break.
You can go.
So I think that's a lifelong journey, that process of letting go, of course, because we kind of hold our hands out like this and then we clutch them back. But that's, I think, a great something to really set before us. The quote that you have in your book, Maria, on Thanksgiving is Meister Eckhart, where you say, if the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it will be enough. Talk a little bit about that, Maria.
Well, I have a gratitude practice. I try to every morning when I open my eyes, I stop myself and say, thank you, God, for letting me open my eyes. That's a gift. I'm grateful for that. Thank you, God, for giving me, my 4 children. They're healthy. I'm grateful for that. I can put my feet on the floor. I'm grateful for that. And I don't take that for granted. And I have found that being able to just list a couple of things early in the morning and late at night shifts my day, shifts my perspectives, keeps me like, okay, it's, not as bad as I think it is. I think I'm okay. My kids are good. I'm good. I put my feet on the floor, look at what I can look at. I have a roof over my head. I'm grateful. Okay, let's go. Because I think we all struggle, I think it's fair to say, with our thoughts, with our minds. I write in there a lot about that. We can beat ourselves up. Oh my God, I didn't do this. I didn't achieve that. I didn't, that dream went out the window. Oh my God, oh my God. And then I think if you can shift that to, I'm grateful for this. I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I can see, the tree. I'm grateful every morning that I can get up. It shifts how I think your day goes and your perspective is. And one thing I've learned that I wasn't taught at a young age was that I do have control for the most part over my thoughts, and that I can, instead of letting them loop around, oh my God, you didn't do this, you didn't raise enough money, oh my God, you don't have enough people, oh my God, which I can be prone to do. I can stop them. I can recognize that I'm okay, that the situation's okay, that I'm grateful, that I can move forward. And I think learning that you are in charge of your thoughts. You get to decide the language that you use about yourself and your situation. I did a small thing not too long ago. I was like, I have to do this, I have to do that. I was like, wow, what if I change it to I get to? Just that small shift. I get to come and talk to Msgr and Edith. I get to go on the road for my book. I get to meet people. I get to talk. Wow. Just these small, I get to be grateful. I get to say thank you. And I think it's such a, thank you notes, letting people know that, them calling you, thank you. Thank you for checking in on me. Thank you. It means a lot to me. It's huge for the person expressing it and for the person hearing it. And I think it's made a huge difference in my life.
That's great, Maria. One of the things, too, I think is you talked about the morning thank you. When I'm in bed at night, my first thought is, stuff all during the day. But I go back over the day and think about the first person I met during the day, the second person I met, the third, and just say a prayer for that person. And by the time I get to my 4th person, I'm out like a light. So it really helps, and it works.
I've often, I look at you, Msgr or Edith, and I wonder, wow, that you're constantly 24/7, 7 days a week giving to people, listening to people, counseling people, pastoring people, supporting people. And so thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Maria, you talk about joy and laughter very often in your book.
Yeah.
And they say that adults laugh about 3 times a day, children about 300 times. And
Wow.
so I would like you to speak about joy and laughter in your life and how that really supports you on your journey.
Yeah, I wrote in my Sunday paper, I've been thinking just the other week, my friend Carl, who's here, I don't know where he is. Carl, I don't know, where's Carl? Where is he? Oh, there he's in the way back. Carl and I have been friends for 30, almost 40 years or whatever. And we had just had a really close friend who passed away, two close friends who passed away 2 weeks apart. And so we went off to celebrate Carl's birthday, and we were sitting around, a group of us, and we were like, wow, life is like full of a lot of like tough stuff. And there's a lot of grief and a lot of loss and people who are really important that come in and come out of your life. And at our age, it can be really serious life. And we decided right then and there that we were going to find one yippee moment. And I came up with that word, yippee moment a day, that would give us something to look forward to or set our day. And I think finding something that's like, yippee. Last night I had dinner with my kids, and I was like, we went around the table, what was your yippee moment of the day? And I think it's really important, particularly as we get older, to laugh at ourselves, to find things to laugh at. My mother was really funny. And she came from a big Irish Catholic family that laughed about everything. Even at funerals, they were laughing, which is so bizarre. And so they're weird. Those Irish wakes, they found a way to laugh at themselves, laugh at life, laugh at, to play games, to be young. And I've always admired that about my parents, so I try to bring laughter into my home, and it's really important. Christina once said to me that it's really important to have at least one really funny friend, and who can just kind of keep you laughing and keep laughter in your life. So my children make me laugh a lot, and so I think it's super important to have friends who make you laugh, and to find a yippee moment in the day, because the rest of the world is complex and tough.
And they say that when you laugh, you send endorphins to the brain.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. And you said it helps you to burn out the old shame and the pain that you carry.
I think that's ongoing.
Yeah.
I think that's really ongoing. Msgr and I were in the back, and I was going to the bathroom, and I was saying one of the things that I've learned from this book tour, and I've been all over the country speaking to really large groups of people and small and in book signings, and everybody to the T is struggling in transition, wondering, what does this all mean? What do I think about politics? What do I think about what's going on in the world? What's happening? And yet people are also experiencing moments of joy and yippee moments, but understanding that life is like that and that we're all very similar has been a real eye-opener to me. So regardless if you're a Democrat or Republican, if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, everybody's like going, I don't know what to think about this. I didn't know what to think about that. I don't know how to handle this. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? So it just tells me that we're really in this much larger community than we realize. And when we think, oh my God, we're the only one who feels lonely, who feels depressed, who doesn't know what to do, who can't find their purpose, who can't find a partner, it's everywhere.
Yes,
yeah.
Thank you. So laugh a lot and enjoy.
So good, thank you. So Maria, in those days when you were First Lady of California, you had those conferences for women. There were 30,000 women there and me. She used to invite me every year, and I was so grateful for it because it was such a powerful experience to see the quality and the power of women in our state and of course in our world. But one of the things I remember most about that, your book describes the power and the grace of that, but the thing I remember most was your willingness to share the story about your mother. And it touched me. I was crying actually when you shared that. And I don't know if you're willing to chat a little bit about that now, but it's such an impactful thing. The thing that's best about Maria is she's willing to share her story. And when she shares her story, it gives you a license to do the same, and that's the good thing.
Well, thank you, Muncie. Which part of the story about Mommy? I could
She
sit here
was
for
sick and in the
hours.
hospital, and she said to you when you walked into the room, "I've been waiting for you."
Oh.
I remember it as if it were yesterday.
Yeah. Well, I write a lot about my mother. I have 4 brothers, and so my mother was the other woman in the house, even though she ran it like a guy. And she was really, like a trip, my mother. She was just like, she was a force of nature and, changed the world. She started Special Olympics in our backyard. She was full of expectations. She never took no for an answer. She dressed like a guy. She hung with guys. She smoked cigars. She carried a briefcase. And she just, mowed you down. And yet she was my greatest champion. And I think I was writing in there where maybe every time I went to visit her in the hospital, and she would say, "I was waiting for you, and why do you have to leave?" And in the book, I share that I found a book that she had given to me, and inside was a note that said, "I will love you more from heaven." And which was, I was throwing books out, and I opened it up, and I had never even seen the note. And I think that it really stopped me because I knew that to be true. I knew my mother could love me and does love me more from heaven because she's freer. And I think she also grew up in a generation where, you didn't, coddle your kids, you didn't tell them you love them, you didn't touch them, you just push them, right? And I think, you can't, something that I have learned in life, you can't give or do what wasn't given or done to you. And so, I think my mother loves me differently. She's more nurturing from heaven. She's softer from heaven. But I definitely know that I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. I wouldn't have been able to navigate the life that I've had it not been that she was always right behind me, like, get tough, get out there, compete. It's a man's world, so tackle. She was like that. So I was like, okay, I'm not a nun. I'm going to tackle now. I don't know. But, she was, there's not a day that goes by that I don't think about her, wish I could call her, ask her counsel, think about her. A big new biography just came out about her. I think 3 weeks ago. It's called Eunice, the Kennedy Who Changed the World. And it's finally a recognition of her in a family of men that got all the attention. Watching her, I think, is a really good note to kind of pay attention to, that she'd be in the room and maybe her brothers would be in the room and everybody would focus on her brothers. And as the book details, she was organizing everything behind the scenes for her brothers. She was the mastermind. She was the policy person. She was doing all of that. And yet she was often overlooked in the room. And so I think that was always a note to me to pay attention to people in the room, aside from the person that has the name or has the shiny job or whatever, because there's always a lot of other really interesting people in the room. And I think a lot of people miss my mother in the room, and she was a force of nature and really changed the world and changed the lives of millions and millions of people with intellectual disabilities and their families.
Wow. Amazing. And Maria, you talk about care as the most valuable and important principle for life, and care for yourself and care for others. But then you say, but don't care too much about what others think about you. Yeah. In other words, don't be a people pleaser.
Yeah, well, that's hard. I've learned, I'm a bit of a people pleaser, and I think it's hard also when you're in the public arena not to care what people think about you, but you can't get anything done if you think if you're worried about what people think about you. So I think it's a very fine line. I think the advent of social media and the way people now speak to other people and speak about other people is stunning. To me, the lack of civic discourse is stunning to me. So I think it's hard out there in the public arena for anybody who's in it, because people just feel like they have the license to say anything. So you have to have a certain amount of kind of intestinal fortitude that I write about in the book to navigate the public arena today. You have to have, your heart and your soul and your armor. And you have to know when to take them on, put them off, take them on. You'll need all of it. And so I think kind of looking, you have to care about some issue in order to get in the arena and fight for it. And then you have to not care about what people are saying and the manner of what you're doing, especially if you have a vision and it's, you have to be aggressive with it. So that's the certain kind of more public thing. But I think kind of, talking about care and nurturing, I think it's really on behalf of mothers and fathers in the home, I think it's the most valuable thing you can give another human being. I've learned, to nurture somebody and care about them comes back to thanking them, calling somebody, like just checking in on you. I care about you. I want to know how you're doing and really mean it. And I grew up thinking like kindness and care were kind of soft issues, and like, what was that? Because, as I said, I had a really tough mother, and so she didn't like talk about that, But I have since learned how strong you have to be kind, how strong you have to be to exhibit caring qualities and stuff like that. So I hope the book will help people of all ages to think about kindness as a strength, care as a political issue, and also a personal and professional issue. You want to work for someone and with someone who cares about you. You want to be in a church community where they care about you, right? You want to be in a relationship with somebody who cares about you. And so I think kind of, adding care and compassion into the dialogue and not seeing them as soft or inconsequential attributes, but serious qualities that we all need and that we all want.
And more than ever, we need caregivers in our world today.
Yeah, I do a huge amount of work in the Alzheimer's community. It's really a mission of mine to try to figure out why women are 2/3 of all the cases being diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Every 65 seconds now, a new brain is diagnosed with Alzheimer's. Every 65 seconds, and 2/3 of those brains belong to women. And nobody knows why that is. So I started the Women's Alzheimer's movement with the sole purpose of trying to figure that out. And as I always have said, that's not sexist, that's smart, because you go where the majority of cases are, and it's not because women live longer. There's something going on in women that's different. And so if we could study women, I believe that we will hopefully find out information that will help all minds. But we are getting the numbers of people being diagnosed with Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia are putting, millions and millions of Americans and around the globe in the position of being full-time caregivers while also trying to provide for their families and parent their kids. So we have a caregiving crisis. We have something like 15 million people, unpaid caregivers, taking care of parents alone. You have, whoa, nice, wow. How romantic, woo. So, the women's Alzheimer's movement and work I'm doing in Alzheimer's and trying to bring the caregiving discussion to businesses, corporations, to government is a huge issue of our time.
Yes. Thank you, Maria. Thank you.
Great. So you have lots of quotes, Maria, in the book from all kinds of people, from Maya Angelou to Francis, our great Pope, who we both love. And I'm just wondering, I'm sure you've received lots of advice from all kinds of people over the years. Can you point out one or two really great pieces of advice that you remember as sacred and important for you, and maybe to talk about the person that did that to you?
Well, I think my mother's advice that life is a marathon, not a sprint, and look at it that way, that you can have it all over a lifetime, but not at once, was really important advice to me as I was trying to manage a career, small children, marriage, and then being, First Lady of California. So I think, that kind of looking at your life as a long haul, as opposed to just, oh my God, what's happening right now, is a really valuable piece of advice. The quote in there that I really love, that what lies within you, are tiny matters what is in front of you and what is behind you is tiny compares to what lies within you. I think that's a very powerful quote and a concept, that no matter what is coming down the pike, no matter what you've been through, what's inside of you can manage all of that. And I think that is a very calming thought and belief. If you actually really believe that, I think it diminishes your fear about what's coming. It diminishes your fear about what you can handle or what you're capable of getting through. I think we all have huge fear about, oh my God, what would I do if that happened? Or what would I do if that happened? And I used to really be, when I was growing up, my mother was sick a lot, and I was always like, I can't ever survive without my mother. I just will not be able to survive. If she dies, I just can't do it. And it was a real fear of mine until she died. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to survive. I'm not going to be able to survive. And then I was like, I have 4 children, then I was like, I actually can do this. Or, you think, oh my God, the first time you're fired, you're like, oh my God, I won't be able to survive. And like, you do. And you survive, and you learn each time what you need to survive. And you just kind of pocket that away. I need community. I need my faith. I need family. I need to let go of this. I need to have this. So I think this book is kind of a lot of wisdom that I've learned along the way, and also how I've changed my mind about a lot of things. I think, that's also been super interesting to me that, I've always wondered about in politics, people are always penalized. Oh, they say, you said 20 years ago that you think this. And, they hold people to what they said 20 years ago or 15 years ago. And it was the only profession that you're penalized if you grow or if you evolve or you change your mind. And I've always thought that was so odd. And so I myself want to know that life has impacted me, that I have changed my thinking, that, because that's what life does to you. If you let it land and if it hits you, and it should make you evolve. It should make you grow. It should make you think differently about things. And so the book is also kind of how I have changed my thinking about power, about success, about kindness, about care, about, all kinds of things that we deal with in life. And I think that that's okay.
Okay. And so I'm going to move to another topic that affects all of us, I think. And you have a whole chapter on complaining. Does anybody ever complain? She says we complain about the traffic, we complain about our bosses, we complain about the weather, we complain. And so the question, I suppose, is in what way does complaining affect us physically and psychologically? And what good advice would you have for people who might sometimes complain?
Well, that chapter came from a story that I was sitting around with my brothers, and every year I go back to Cape Cod to hang with my 4 brothers, and we were all sitting around the table, and we're all there, the 5 of us, all our kids are there playing, we're all complaining about my parents. Oh my God, Mommy did this, and Daddy did that, and they were this, and they were that, and this and that, and then my brother says, like, do you think it's kind of weird that we're sitting here like complaining about them in the house that they gave us? And we're like all best friends, so they raised us well. They provided this house. We're all here because of them. We're all, this is like holy mackerel. And we were all like, ooh, yeah, that's so true, And so we decided then we would, we could, instead of sitting there going, they did this, she liked this one better, that one better, that we could shift, that it was such a drag to be complaining, and it's particularly about people who aren't even here. It's like, what were we doing? So I think we tried this kind of like, let's stop complaining and see where it gets us. And we had this like week thing, we're going to stop complaining. And it was so freeing, and it made you so light, and it made you like, yeah, oh my God, if someone comes in all the time and they're like, oh my God, the traffic, the this, my clothes, my thing, my kid, you're like, wow, out later, so it's heavy, it's negative, right? So I think, that was a really eye-opening thing to me, that we can all sit around and complain about the incredible gift that's right in front of us, or we can shift and go like, wow, how great were our parents? They raised us, to be best friends. We're all sitting here, 40, 50 years later, best friends at the same table, all our kids, like, they must have done something incredible. And so I think it's just kind of shifting the way we look at every situation.
Can you talk a little bit about your complaint-free zone in your house?
Well, it doesn't work, so I wrote it in there. I always like, stop complaining, but it doesn't work. Yeah, that's the truth. I'd like to tell you that it's like there's a whole, like I don't allow any complaining, but it just, I throw it out there, but it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
No.
Okay. So we're
Sometimes
stuck.
it works, like, can we stop complaining over the table or something? But it's a work in progress.
Work in
How about that?
progress.
Yeah.
Someday.
So, Maria, as your pastor, I've journeyed with your family, and I know that you're a great person of faith, and I know that your faith is something that's personal, but I also know that it's something that helps you, or at least focuses you on the poor, on issues like homelessness. You mentioned Alzheimer's as a great struggle, and I'm just wondering, Maria, how would you frame for people here? We're people that are people of faith, and we come to Mass on Sunday, or we go to our synagogue on Sunday, or we go to our place of worship, and then we go out, and the week is what it is. How would you? What kinds of things have formed you to become such a powerful woman, not just of your own personal faith, but you're willing to share that faith with your children, with other people? I saw in your little blog Sunday that you have lots of folks in for dinner. You do a lot of those kind of home.
I've invited you several times, and you're always like, I'm so busy.
Thank you, Maria. I invited her tonight, actually.
Is that true? Admit it. It's true.
So, do you have some good advice for folks about, their life of faith? It could be more dynamic, more caring. Could you talk a little bit about that? That's not a good question, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, my grandmother had incredible faith. And so I grew up watching her, and I remember distinctly asking her, like, how do you do that? How do you get that? And she's like, well, you just ask God for it and just do it. And I was like, well, that doesn't work like that for like a lot of people. But both of my parents, went to Mass every day till they died. And they went together.
Her parents, every day.
Every day.
Eucharist.
And two of my brothers go every day. And I don't go every day. And but I think that, so I was raised, as I said, with a lot of nuns, a lot of priests that came over, priests and nuns who were working in social justice. My parents really believed that they were here to do social justice work from their faith. So my mother saw her work in Special Olympics and on behalf of people with intellectual disabilities as social justice, faith-based work. My dad started the War on Poverty, Peace Corps, as social justice, faith-based work. He believed in spiritual politics. He believed, that what he was doing would be what Jesus was doing. That was really kind of the way they operated, the way they talked. And I must admit, I weaved my eyes quite a bit, but they did it. And they always had people, whether it was Mother Teresa, the Berrigan brothers, people who were like pushing the envelope on behalf of people living on the margins. So I grew up in that. And so myself, I have, obviously this is my community, but I also look at Buddhism and Hinduism and Judaism and try to look at all of different, learn about different religions and kind of look at them as examples of love. And my work, my journalism, a lot of it has been looking at women living on the margins, living paycheck to paycheck, families struggling. And when I was First Lady, I did a lot of work, families in our state. We have the highest poverty rate in the nation, and we're like the richest state, and there's huge homelessness and poverty in this city alone. And so I try to kind of keep my eye on that. And I think I also kind of, this sounds really kooky, but I build what looks like altars in my home. And I wear jewelry that is spiritual in nature, whether it's crosses or Buddhists or Kuan Yin or whatever it is.
Or rosaries.
Rosaries, mala beads, all that sort of stuff, because it just keeps me centered. It keeps me, keeps my faith with me as I go out into the world. And I think for me, that's a personal way of just keeping centered and remembering. I look down, there's a cross on my finger, I'm like, got it. Or there's a cross on my neck. I just I feel like, or I look down and there's a Buddha and I'm like, I'm calm. I'm unattached. It's all passing through. I look for stories and reminders to keep my faith living as I live out in the world.
Thanks,
Maria, a wonderful question on. You speak about the incredible power of motherhood and say that motherhood is the most important job on earth. And then you say our words, our attitudes, and our actions shape human beings long after we are gone. And so on this week, as we celebrate Mother's Day, what great advice might you have for the mothers gathered here, or experience from your own mother and your mothering?
Well, as I said, I think it's the most powerful job on the planet, and yet it's still the most kind of undervalued job on the planet. When I was First Lady, people would come up to me all the time and say, you should do this, and you should do that, and you should. And I'd be like, well, what about you? And they're like, I'm just a mother. I'm just an assistant. I'm just a. I think that elevating the role of motherhood, when I write my bio or what I'm introduced, I lead with mother. It is more important than my job at NBC. It is more important than, my work at the Women's Alzheimer's Movement. It's the most important thing I do. And so my grandmother talked a lot about the influence of motherhood in shaping a child's mind, a child's future, a child's life. And I think we know so much more now about attachment, about the science of caregiving and love and loving another person. And I think that, I would love to see the kind of role of motherhood almost expanded, because I've been mothered by people who haven't been my mother and who've actually never had a child. And I've been mothered, there's 2 women in particular who have mothered me. I think men can mother, which I think is really, and what I mean by that is, the nurturing of motherhood, the listening of motherhood, which is also in fatherhood. But I think the caring, the nurturing, the listening, the being there, you are my priority, I will do anything for you, the unconditional love that requires, it is the hardest job on earth. And it has been the most difficult thing I've ever done, and it has obviously been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. And I say to women in this whole kind of women's empowerment space, and you can run for that C-suite office, you can do whatever you want, but the most important thing in your life will always be your family. Anybody can do your job, but nobody can do your mothering. And that's a really important thing.
Thank you, Maria.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I just spoke at a big women's professional conference, and I said, even though it's not popular to say, I said, your job is not your family. Your job is not your child. Your job is not your partner. Your job is your job. And yes, it pays the bills. Yes, it can bring meaning, but if they don't like you, they're going to fire you, right? Your kids are going to be there forever, right? And hopefully they don't fire you. But if you don't pay attention, they will fire you. So I think it's really been a gift to be the mother. I dedicate the book to Catherine, Christina, Patrick, and Christopher, each of whom have taught me incredible lessons, each of whom are different human beings, each of whom make a great team together. But I also am aware that they're very different and that they each need something different. And but I'm incredibly proud of who they are, and that they're really good, kind human beings. And I feel like in that space I did good.
Thank you, Maria.
That's great, Maria. Thank you so much. Who do you think's on the cover? Who is
That's
that?
me. Everybody says, who's that on the cover? I'm like, it's me. Hello. They're like, oh, I thought it was some young girl. I'm like, ugh. I said, I'm going to have to start walking around backwards. Yeah.
So Maria is a great woman, and she's been, for me, just a person who's not only given me an example of how to live life in great moments as well as difficult moments, but she's always cheered me on. And I believe that about people. I think that that's the sacred gift that we can give to each other, is that we cheer each other on. There's so much negativity, and there's so many bad things that we think about. We need people that will cheer us on and support us in our journey. So I'm very grateful for that, Maria. It means a lot
you,
to me, and
Monsignor.
I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
So, so we're at 45 minutes, and we've been talking, and I'm just gonna ask maybe just a very few, because Lindsay is guarding this night sacredly, and I know that some of you want to get a signature from Maria. She's not gonna stay all night, so when the time comes for her to leave, she's gonna leave. So if you have a great desire to have the book signed, she'll do that for a little while. But my question is there any one or two questions from anyone in this room that, a good question now that'll support this great woman? Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, we lost our father, and I lost my dad. She lost her husband, and it was October. So you speak so much of thank you. There's so many moms in here tonight that I know because I've taught their children. So thank you to all the mothers who get up every morning and put so much more than gasoline in a car to keep it driving. Because I'm sure there's teachers in here, but we know it takes a lot to get up every morning and keep your family running. So thank you to all the mothers for Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's great.
So, that's so beautiful.
It
That's
is.
so beautiful that
Thank
you
you.
did that and that you shared your own loss and the loss of your friend sitting there. And then your what? That's your mom? Oh my God, she's so young.
She looks like your sister.
Yeah. And
That's great.
yeah, look at that. That's success right there.
Sure is.
That's success. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for sharing your time
A short
and
question,
your
though.
wisdom. So regarding the women's conference, are you considering at all trying to put together another one? And secondly, I was privileged to be there when the Dalai Lama came, when you were so
That was wonderful.
brilliant to have him come. And his first words he said to us were, women should rule the world because of their compassion. So ultimately, my question is, how do we, in a civilized world, lacking some civilized, as you said today, how do we get back to that compassion? How do we get there again?
I think you just one person at a time. I think you have to. I know that may sound, like, oh, I want a big idea. That is a big idea, actually. I think if you're compassionate and she's compassionate, and he's compassionate, and like I always say to my kids, you have to treat me a certain way, talk to me in a certain way, and be kind to me in a certain way. I'll give that back, and then they go out and they give it back, and I think that's really all we can do, right? It's not like, we can have a compassion initiative, but what is that going to be? It's going to be
Right.
one person to another person to another person. So that's what a compassion initiative is. So we can speak and, we can learn to respectfully disagree. John McCain had a lot of excerpts from his new book out this past week, which talked about, learning how to be respectful and disagree. Learning about, how to get along, how to compromise. And he didn't use the word compassion, but I think if you kind of try to walk your walk and talk your talk and not scream and abuse and yell at people, then people go, oh, she got something done and she did it that way, and so on and so forth. So I think myself, that's the best way. And to, I think, vote for people who exhibit the values that you care about, and not to vote for people who don't, and not to think something's just funny, like that's funny, but they're really rude and mean and stuff like that. So I think it's kind of really individual. And in terms of the women's conference, no. I worked 7 days a week, for 7 years on that conference, and I did it was one of those moments where I walked out and I dropped the mic and I'm like, done. And now there have been so many that have come up. And so I'm looking at doing health conferences, health summits to educate people about holistic health, how our cognitive health, our mental health, our spiritual health, our financial health, our emotional health, how all connected they are, and about looking at our health care and our health in a more holistic way. I'm interested in that because I can't really help that many people who actually have Alzheimer's already, but I can help people learn about what causes it, learn about what they might be able to do. I can talk about prevention. I can make a dent there, and I can help caregivers who have loved ones with Alzheimer's. But so that's kind of where my interest is. I think there's so many women's conferences now. And so I feel like that conference birthed all these babies all over the country. And it was the mother lode, and it's now chilling. So it's resting, but thank you.
Let's take one more question.
Take a few.
Take a few? Okay, Marie, I don't want to wear you out.
This isn't a question either, it's a comment. I wanted to thank you for talking about mothering, not just being a mother.
Yes.
That there are those who mother even if they don't physically have children, and I thank you for realizing that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good, thanks, Peggy. She's got the book.
I do. I've been reading it. I'm looking at chapter when it's time to move on. Do it well, finish it properly, and move on. Can you talk about that part where you can't move on?
Yeah. And I'm sorry for your pain in that space because I can see it and feel it. And there's a quote that somebody gave me once that was like, you will know what you need to know when you need to know it. And I use that a lot in my own. When you're ready to move on, you will move on, and not a minute before. And so not to beat yourself up. Everybody has different time, place with that, right? It's like grief. Some people you lose your mother or your father, and then, a week later, people are like, you good? You're all good now, you're right, it's okay. Or some people have a relationship with an animal that's even more intense than a loved one, and people are like, you good, you got it? And so I think nobody can tell you when to move on, right? And I think rather than beating yourself up for not being able to move on, I think that there are tools available to people who struggle in a rut, not being able to move on. I'm a big advocate of therapy. I write about it in the book. It's been very helpful to me. Learning how to, write down things that are important to you, that value you, and, begin to look at your life and then look at the life that is keeping you stuck. And do they add up? Are they the same? Are you happier over here? And you just take baby steps all the time, and you will know when you need to move on. And until you know, don't move on. And don't beat yourself up for not being able to, because everybody has different time on that. And it's painful to move on. And I get that. Huh?
Thank you. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say I always remind myself, sorry. I know that you're always trying to surround yourself with people that you can learn something from. Like when you visited the nuns back east, or,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot from your book. And just from following the news or, just from church. You have a beautiful family. I know that you were looking for more purpose. That's what you said in your book. And have you found it? Do you feel like you have found more meaning in your life?
I'm not sure I was looking for more purpose. I don't know which chapter you're talking about. I've always had a lot of purpose. I might have been looking for direction. I might have been looking for guidance. I might have been looking for, like, where am I going? Am I going in the right place? What's happening, kind of thing. And I really believe that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be.
I'm very happy to hear that.
Yeah, and I feel, I'm not saying it was easy to get where I am, and, but I like me. I feel proud of myself. I feel, I feel like I feel like that doesn't stop me from every day waking up and going, God, show me where to go and show me what I'm here to do. But I feel great purpose in my work with women in Alzheimer's. I feel great purpose in my work at NBC, which allows me to do a lot of meaningful stories. I feel great meaning in my role as a parent. I feel great responsibility in my role as a friend. I feel, and as a sister. And so I feel really blessed in my life. I mean, I feel like, is it perfect? No one's is. Is it exactly where I want to be? No. Do I come home to an empty house and eat animal crackers at 11? Yes. Is that good? No. As my daughter said to me the other night, Mommy, you're talking all the time about eating healthy and you're here, you're eating crackers at 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, nothing else to do here. So do I like that? No. But, it is what it is, and I'll know when I need to know what I need to know about that too, so there you go. But, I feel like, I feel like I couldn't have written that book 2 years ago, 5 years ago. I couldn't have gone out on this book tour a year ago. So it's right at the right time. I wouldn't have had the strength, I wouldn't have had the wisdom, I wouldn't have been in the place I'm in. So I think kind of it happens when it happens at the right time and in the right place.
Go ahead, Suzette. You have a question?
Good evening, Msgr and Sister Edith and Ms. Shriver. My name is Suzette Solang. I'm so sorry. I have a question for Ms. Shriver. I'm disabled and I had a stroke and aphasia since 2005. And because of that, I speak and read slowly. Do you have any audio books that I can buy outside in St. Monica?
I have an audiobook, but not here at St. Monica's.
Yeah.
You can get it on Audible and Amazon, and you can listen to it that way.
Great. I'll buy the audiobook, but could you please sign the audiobook? Also, should I send it to you like maybe a P.O. box?
Monsignor knows how to find me.
Okay.
I want to say you're doing such a great job. I did a story on aphasia. And,
thank you very much.
Yeah, and I did a story on a woman who wrote a book about aphasia and having aphasia and how difficult it is to come back from a stroke and having to learn to talk again and to do all the work that you've done that allows you to stand up and ask that question.
Well,
Bravo.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Yeah.
Ms. Shriver. Thank you.
She's here every Sunday welcoming all of us to our liturgy. Suzette, there she is. Every Sunday is our hospitality. Thank you. There's a man in the back. I'd like to get one man's question.
I know, a man. Gosh. There's men. There are men. There are many men here.
Well, I am going to ask a question about a man, about Monsignor. If, not to put you on the spot here, but if you can share any stories about how this church, this community, how this man, Monsignor, has helped you along your spiritual journey.
Well, I could talk for an hour about that. I mean, Monsignor baptized all our 4 children. Monsignor, took my family through confirmation, through First Communion, through really, I mean, every kind of pivotal moment in my life. And I think has been there for every step of the way for me and my children. And so there isn't kind of a move in the last kind of 30, came to my mother's funeral, knew my parents, who came to church here when they would come and visit me here, pastored to them, has pastored to my entire family. And so I think, we all, I think when life happens and stuff happens and you reach out to somebody, he's always been there for me. And so I don't know anything that you haven't been involved in. So maybe the animal crackers at 11 o'clock at night, but that's about it.
I might come over tonight, Maria.
I'll be there with the crackers.
So, okay. This will be our last. Go right ahead. This is the best.
It is the best, Monsignor. Maria, I do believe that both of your parents changed the world with these incredible organizations, the Peace Corps and Special Olympics. And I feel like a lot of people have good ideas, but they don't believe that they can bring them to fruition. How was it, what was different about your parents? What set them apart that they believed that they could accomplish these incredible things and they actually did?
Well, they believed in these incredible things. They worked 7 days a week, 365 days a year at it. They never rested. They made it their life. Everybody they met, they included in their mission. I think, certainly my mother, it helped to have a brother who was president of the United States in terms of, but I say that only in terms of getting policy done. That was obviously, she used that moment to get policy enacted, to create, the first presidential commission on intellectual disabilities, NIH, looking at children and all that. So she used that opportunity. But she built Special Olympics not because she had a brother who was president of the United States. That was just sheer grit and sweat and traveling to all 50 states. She made my brothers and I travel to all 50 states. She traveled all over the world. When she was 86, before she died at 88, and she was planning a trip to Bosnia at 87. She was in China. She was in Africa. She never stopped. So, and when I meet with people who I call architects of change, people like Mommy and Daddy, that are regular people who are building organizations, that's what they do. And they're doing it. So you don't have to have a brother who's president of the United States to get stuff done. You see it every single day in the Sunday paper. We profile people every week who are starting organizations to deal with gun violence, who are starting organizations to deal with homelessness, who are changing laws, about, how educators who are, every single day I'm, presented with somebody who's doing something extraordinary. And so I think it's, if you have an idea, as I always say to my kids, maybe go and work for somebody who you admire, work for somebody you respect, learn from them, watch how they did what they did. My mother always said that Special Olympics really was built because so many people volunteered. And so, that was really the success of that movement, was to tap into the volunteer spirit that exists all across this country. So if you have an idea, get one person, get another person. I remember my son saying to me once, Jesus's first, disciple was more powerful than Jesus. I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah, because you can't be a leader without a follower. And I was like, uh-huh. Yeah, I was like, never thought about Jesus that way. And so I think if you can get somebody else, there's that great Margaret Mead quote that says, never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. So I think I think sometimes people get caught in I have to go big. But if you get one person to two people to three people, there's no doubt in my mind that you can get something done. And I think it's also not being afraid to think, small is powerful, because small is powerful. And I think, the world needs people who are following their passion and willing to work, not at maybe the level that, my parents did. My son asked me the other night, did your parents ever take a vacation? And I was like, I don't think so. All of our trips were, working in, poor areas, meeting with people. It was just, and so when I met my kid's dad, he took a vacation. I'm like, ooh, I'm out of here. I don't know where I'm going, like vacation. So I think, they just, and what they did also is everybody they met, they roped into their cause. You couldn't get out of our house without working for either one of them. So, and as a result, all four of my brothers and I still work for both of them. And they're in heaven. And we're also still afraid of them.
Well, Bobby was, of course, mayor of our city for a while, and he's moved now, but he was a great force in Santa Monica. I remember your dad, Maria, coming in one morning. She's right. He went to daily Mass, and so he'd come to 8 o'clock Mass, and after Mass, he'd come in, we'd have a cup of coffee. And one day, he sat there in the kitchen with me, and his only concern was Eunice. His only concern was to make sure that somehow, some way, she was recognized, because he felt that she hadn't had some of the recognition that maybe she deserved. And I just thought to myself, isn't that wonderful that a husband has that as his primary kind of love and concern, that his wife would be recognized. That's how you live life, you live it for the other. So Maria, we love you. We're grateful to you. Thank you so much. It's wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So she's going to be in that little chair over there for a little while, so don't give her too much.